Haritamızı görüyorsunuz zaten. Karasal rüzgar enerjisinin gelişimini hızlandıracak yeni düzenlemeler olacak. Bu panelimiz
As you see here, we will be talking about accelerating onshore wind development, navigating the new regulatory landscape. We will be talking about the latest developments, latest regulations in this landscape, and our panelists will be talking about this. They will be exploring the recent regulatory changes aimed at speeding up the permitting process of onshore wind farms in Turkey and their implications for the industry. First of all, I'd like to invite our moderator, esteemed Ebru Arıcı, with a round of applause. And I would like to invite some important guests. YEKA. From YEKA, esteemed Dr. Dilan Kavruluk, head of the Renewable Energy Resources area. From the Republic of Turkey, Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Changes, and we will have from esteemed Pasha Enver Baysan from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. So we also have the Turkey Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. We have Ahmet Köle from the General Directorate of Forestry, Head of Development, Head of Department of Permission and Easement. We also have the Directorate General of AEI Permit and Inspection from the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ebru Arıcı from TWEA. Thank you so much for giving me the floor. We have these presentations, we will have these sessions, it will be broadcasted on YouTube. We investigated our topics, we studied well. We studied our lessons, so we can always contact the people regarding these topics. These topics are really deep and important. We will be giving some time for Q&A session. If we cannot facilitate Q&A, we can always have a feedback, and we will be sharing this. I would like to welcome you all. Your participation is really important. As you know, our Minister of Natural Resources and Energy declared we are an ambitious sector already, but they accelerated our speed. Since 10 November, we have this storage, we have these permissions, we have licenses. Of course, we continue with these projects that they're accelerating. 2 days ago, we issued another license. We have a stock of 20 gigabytes. We have to understand, now we can comprehend the importance. For the last 2 decades, we reached up to 30 gigawatts. Now it is around 13 gigawatts. So I leave the YEKA apart. This is the double stock of the project. You know that they have these pre-license periods are limited to 26 to 36 months. They're expecting us to commission it within the period of time of 5 years. Of course, you can change it, but there is this impact a lot. We have received, of course, there are some energy analysis. We will be getting back to the institutions. We will have some reports with these forest processes. Is really important because we have these investments in the forest areas. We are together with 656 projects. We are facing 656 projects. We are discussing this for quite a long time. It's nothing new. We are in touch with the institutions. The institutions are always in communication. Within the time, of course, regulations change. Regulations always change. We should be always thinking about how to simplify how to simplify the regulations. If there are overlapping parts, of course, we will be doing those parts, and the areas will changing. There will be different specifications. We will talking about these different specifications. If it's accurate, I'll continue with the session, the order of the session. I would like to give the floor to first to Dr. Dilan Kavruk. You are the one who is preparing the infrastructure in the launch. You have these targets. Regarding these targets, of course, there are some parts that there are agreements, there are some ever-changing parts. Can you just elaborate on that? Thank you so much, Miss Ebru. Thank you so much for the organizing committee. As you mentioned, our minister attaches great importance and set a vision for us, established a vision for us. So our renewable capacity consists of 30% of our power. We will be quadrupling our power, existing wind energy power. This installed power by 2035 it will reach up to 120 gigabytes. We have to take further steps, concrete steps, and take the initiatives. Wind and solar energy has accelerated, but we see that we have to double our speed. We have to continue as ministry. Of course, we have to continue within the agreement of the with the Paris Agreement. Of course, it is a responsibility for us. It is a huge responsibility for us. It has to keep us in our pace. Yet, while doing this, we have to acknowledge the contributions from the sector. We have to acknowledge it. For that reason, as the institution, as the industry, we will be doing our best to catch our targets. All these contributions cannot be facilitated without the permissions. So I have to start with these processes. You have this pre-license position, pre-license process. Normally, it is a period of two years. These processes in the institutions that exceeds us, this process has come up to 48 months. Of course, investors are right. They are negotiating some permissions. For some reason, we have a process of 2 years or 48 months of pre-license. Is this assessment of environmental impact process? This assessment of environmental impact process takes up to 12 months, but it can go further. The most important part is that assessment part, this environmental assessment part. Of course, we also make another analysis of wind interaction analysis. Wind interaction analysis is important. All the investors always know. Are really conscious about this. Other part is the part that we are working. We are always aware of this area. We have this forest permission system. It can take up to 4 to 6 months. After license, there is another permission to cutting down the trees. Without the permission of the cutting down the forest, you cannot enter the forestry area. By its nature, forest and wind exist in the same area. For that reason, for some reason, there is always this intersection. These investment areas are always in these forestry areas. That's why we are entering these areas. That's why where the sources are located in. For that reason, these forestry permissions are some of the permissions that we have to take. Well, another part is these settlement construction permissions. How can we shorten this process? How can we expedite this process? How can we uh, facilitate this permission so that investors can start their investments in the area? We made a project about how to expedite this process. We listened to the sector, the investors. We communicated with public institutions. The picture that we see, it's obvious that we need some arrangements, first of all. These environmental impact assessment declarations are a precondition. According to the regulations, it's a must. They have to obtain this positive environmental impact assessment. We need this regulation arrangement. So it will not be a precondition, it will be a simultaneous condition. We can always ask for permission for the other processes, but for the pre-work, we can start the pre-work while we continue with the environmental impact assessment. So we had some other studies regarding the thresholds of these assessments, environmental impact assessments. So regarding these impact reports, if they are a larger scale, it is defined in the regulations. Thanks to these technologies, thanks to these developing technologies, we made some regulations. We had made some adjustments in the regulations. Also, we had some simplification studies. We always gather together with our Ministry of Forestry, our Directorate of Ministry of Forestry. We came to an agreement. As our president will tell you, there is a pre-license and pre-permissions. As you can see, there's this permission phase. So we only have this pre-permission phase. There is an assessment and metric system, measurement system in the forestry. So a couple of times you have to obtain these permissions from Ministry of Forestry. Then you go back to Ministry of Forestry. You have to obtain these clear permissions, absolute permissions. So we want to expedite this process in order to facilitate these steps so that we can convene all these in a comprehensive permission document so that it will be a permission for a long period of time, for a single time, but for a long period of time. That is the agreement that we reached on. So that we can expropriate these projects. Regarding the law, we can implement the YECA, so we can also spread it to the general use so that we can expedite this expropriation process. We can shorten this process. Our objective is to complete environmental impact assessment report process within 18 months. So we will be making the adjustments in the regulations within 18 months. We can obtain the license and we can invest directly in the field. This is the process to expedite these procedures. We are always in touch with the institutions in order to secure these R&D studies, catch our targets. It's really important to collaborate. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to reply. Thank you so much. I'd like to give the floor to the rest of the speakers. Thank you so much. I'll be addressing to you in the end regarding your coordination center. Let's continue with you, Mr. Pasha. With the new licenses, we have 610 plants, and they are actively facilitating. I think we first communicated with you. We made these environmental impact assessment projects. First of all, you had projects in the western part. Now you have in the eastern provinces such as Kars and Van. You continue commissioning these plants. In terms of international investment, in terms of international funding, you also have these projects. It's not an obligation, but investors also initiated that part. They are complying with their responsibilities. The same question as ChatGPT um, facilitated me a series of questions. So a group is asking, will there be a process without any permissions? No, they will be only escaping from the recurrent permissions. It is only expediting process, not eliminating the permission process. I know your contributions. I know you have some agreements, MOUs regarding these topics, but we have to be conscious of one thing. Without these preconditions, you always have to restart. What's your take on this issue? Before taking the floor, before starting my speech, I would like to thank you, distinguished Mr. Ibrahim, President of TWEA, and members of the organizing committee. I'd like to thank each and every one of you as these nature conservation and national parks. We are here to protect the flora and fauna of our nature in Turkey. If they're endangered species, we are securing a large scale of habitats. We are protecting biodiversity. Sustaining our biodiversity is indeed our duty. If we are to talk about nature and natural resources demands, there is an increasing demand for the natural resources. With this demand, our reserves are getting more scarce due to pollution, increasing rates of environmental pollution is a threat and challenge for us in the path to access to renewable clean energy, especially regarding wind energy. There are some available areas. The bird migration paths is of crucial importance to us. For that reason, there is an intersection of these paths. For that reason, we have to use these both sides equally. European Wild Animals Conservation Agreement is a treaty that Turkey has signed. We are registered within this 50 countries. We are dedicated to comply with the conditions of this agreement to conservation of wild animals. If we plant these wind turbines, wind plants in an erroneous place, it will be endangering these bird species. Of course, we have faced some of the complaints in 2015 in the area district of Çeşme regarding the density of the rest areas. We have received complaints from international institutions that they are destructing the natural areas. It is not good for the prestige and reputation of our country, we do everything that we can in order to protect the reputation of our country. What is the impact of RES in this regard? How how is it in our agenda? Let's talk about this area. We have four titles. Maybe the species and birds are disturbed. We have to maybe change the areas. Maybe the rest is always establishing a barrier. Birds are A flock of birds are changing their migration path. And the third is the death of the birds. The fourth title is the habitat. Destruction of the habitat and causing the decrease in the population, causing these negative impacts. For that reason, as these Nature Conservation and National Parks Directorate, your we would like to suggest that these environmental impact assessments reports are of utmost importance. In the planification of these rest areas, we have to always consider the immigration areas of the words. We have to consider the biodiversity and make an assessment of the biodiversity. We have this database that we call Noah's Ark. You can consider it and do investigations accordingly. You can investigate the flora of the field first. So when the investors apply for the permissions, that these investors also wanted, maybe I think integrate we can integrate, maybe we can facilitate in the financing part. Regarding the immigration paths of the birds, so these spring paths, migration paths, or the fall migration paths, if they miss it, maybe they can realize that they can establish it in the spring, but this spring immigration is within 1st of March to 1st of June, and the fall immigration is from 1st of August to the 1st of October. Different species of birds migrate different during different periods of time. They are different routes. They take different paths. Why do we want in the migration paths of spring? Then why we ask for the fall? Because they are different paths, they are different routes, they're taking different routes. We have a new format, we have a new method as the General Directorate of Nature Conservation in National Parks. Our investors should have the same conditions regarding these migration paths. We have these 3 months of observation phase. For 5 days, they determine one point, and on the 6th day, this area within the radius of 6 kilometers of this point, they define the species. They we always request a monitoring of the species. We want it for 5 times. In a total of 30 days, we want to make this monitor and assessment of these migration paths so that we can integrate these paths of fall and spring migration routes. It's not just us, it is the same procedure all around the world. Our investors always request the same assessment reports. As a result of these reports, we are seeing determining whether it is suitable for investment or not, so that investors shouldn't lose time, so that they won't be facing any difficulties for part of the energy as a country in the world. There is a need, there's a necessity. We are well aware of the fact that our resources um, are always, we spend our income to resources, natural resources, in the importation of the natural resources. But where there is energy, there is the birds. We have to deliver it as a heritage to the next generations in a sustainable way. As the General Directorate of Conservation and National Parks, we have to take necessary precautions and use the data. We use these camera systems and all the radar systems. It is really important for us to establish these rest areas. It will ease our path, it will unblock the way. We continue to watch the latest developments so that we can develop the state of art methodologies. Thank you so much for listening. We always say we cannot give up the energy, neither can we give up on our natural resources, on our nature, on our national parks. We have to serve the best. I have taken my notes. I will be giving my notes. I believe we have some common points. Mr. Ahmet, of course, since the first plant that we commissioned, I believe that we established them in the forested areas. The regulations that we made, I believe this is the Article 17 in the forestry regulations. I believe we stopped 20 years ago. There was a decree from the court, but we tried to do something altogether. But as we have seen, regulations have also evolved. This we resolved this issue of pre-license period. We expedited the procedures, but we are curious about this one single permission and how do you finalize this? There's a trick to it. With one single permission, you need to make the assessments clearly from the beginning. I would like to take your opinion. What's your take on the issue?
Öncelikle de böyle güzel.
Thank you. And let me start by thanking you for inviting us to this great congress. I mean, a lot of important points have been discussed so far, but also, as you all know, permits or licenses also contain some sort of property expectations and demands, and these try to be overcome with, different approaches. But in the end, no matter what, we get together with investors, and when you look at figures, we have provided incredible permits. The total figure is 326,000 hectares of land. I mean, by law, our duty is to develop, operate, but also to preserve our forest land. Preservation and utilization, there is a fine balance to it. If you're talking about a forest area, there's a lot of function involved. But let's not take it in a unilateral fashion, and let's never put it in a situation that would contradict with what the society expects and what industries demand. And this is where we confront. Of course, licensing, offering permits and everything is our duty. But when we get together with investors, sometimes contradictions occur. But Again, we're talking about a lot of processes, and it's not easy. You will contact us. You have to provide us with your environmental effect assessments, etc. It's not just about a couple of permits or like visiting authorities over and over again. I mean, we run various assessments too, starting from, uh, combating with fire and everything. But when we talk about challenges, and by the way, Miss Ebru or Mr. Ibrahim contacts us very often, but when we offer a permit, we also check the related legislations too, like energy, mining. We check all the necessary or like related regulations. But as you remember, it used to be like a three-staged process, but we dropped it to two because it is really time consuming and you have to get together with investors a lot. When challenges and problems occur, it's as if we are the ones, causing them. So in order to manage this process in a healthy fashion, just like Ebru said, we need a properly designed project because we're talking about a limited land and we have to manage it very carefully. And when a problem occurs, well, the legal responsibility is solely on the institution that provided that permit. So then this needs, again, time-consuming investigations. And we had a study with the related ministries to assess these permit and certificate and license processes. So then we decided to go for a two-stage process. And then when there's a license for a proper project, and because we have the practices in place, we said this is how we should manage the situation and prolong the permits, prolong the rights. We also discussed it with the chair last night. We could go for amendments, but I mean, our legislations are properly positioned, so we can fix it. But let me emphasize once again, it should be a solid, feasible project. And we got the chance to talk with industry representatives during the breaks. So this is how it should be done. You may be managing the entire process with Y2Ks or related institutions, but our our process is actually crystal clear, and we always share recommendations. I mean, if you have to go for a change with the land allocated to you, okay, the process is clear. You might have some other requirements, but then, I mean, everything is clear in legislation. But like I said, we need a solid, properly designed project because we go over every single detail from one turbine to another. So we don't want to reject anything before meticulously assessing. I mean, it's going to take time, yes, but we want to be meticulous with our assessments so that it'll be trouble-free in the future, meaning have your game set properly so that, you can really play it. And during our investigation, we said, okay, this pre-license thing is okay. And we wanted to prepare a draft bill for it. All parties agreed. And some changes are on the way. I hope it'll be implemented because, I mean, you don't get to see much problems when institutions agree and get together on the same page. Here's how it was. We had pre-licenses and then The process was ongoing. Then there was another request for a permit for drilling, but then it included cutting trees and doing a lot of different things. But then we said, hang on, let us revise your extra demand, and that was the only logical thing to do. Another big challenge, sometimes titles changes, or sometimes details of licenses change, and sometimes applications remain pending for a very long time because we have to do something with them. We also asked the industry to take care of their changes in a swift fashion. We contacted authorities and questioned whether we should limit it to 90 days, because otherwise, it would take too long. But then we decided it wouldn't be that healthy. So this is what we want from all the applicants. Have your plan ready, have your project meticulously planned, and be aware of your responsibilities. Of course, we receive a lot of visits from the industry, and it is a great opportunity to communicate. I mean, sometimes we have unique challenges in rural areas, but as long as you communicate, of course, we'll try to find a way to support you and help you overcome the situation. We have experts right in the field, and sometimes, yes, misunderstandings can occur, but pay us a visit or just email us. Our doors are always open. And maybe, like I said, as an institution, we have an experience of more than 180 years, whose doors are always open, even during the weekends, so that, the citizens can visit us and let us know what is troubling them. So this is my declaration. I hope I was clear, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Yeah, we were planning a workshop with the General Directorate of Forestry, but I think we need a change in the regulations. But advisors, counselors, all parties must get together, I think, because that would be the only way to come up with healthy outcomes, right? Yeah, we have this information via text messages thing, and there were some negative criticisms, but I don't think I'm going to cover it. And also, there were different issues, but I mean, we cannot agree on everything. Sometimes we present the commission some challenges, some issues, some like complaints. And it's also a process. Well, maybe we can simplify some processes because that would be a plus in terms of time taking. The analysis is that we conclude applications or complaints in 90 to 100 days. But when we're talking about a project, it's a different case. And sometimes, because of missing documents, it takes longer. I mean, we could directly reject it if, we're talking about a missing documents situation, but there was this one application that all documents were okay, everything was properly set, and we permitted it in 6 days. So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say when I tell you to, we need when I tell you that we need well planned projects. Thank you. Well, we knew about environmental effect assessment for some time, but I think it would make sense to say that projects take their final shapes when they start to think of all those environmental effect assessment criteria. And you are the first institution when project owners want to start their contact. So it's not limited to completing, this or that processes, but the reality of the wind farms are turbines change, watts change, it takes longer, but technology changes really swiftly. So what about compatibility side? The workload is really huge here. Thank you so much for all your efforts, by the way. I know that you are exerting great efforts. So when it comes to improvements, your ministry is in a coordinating position. So what lies ahead? Can you tell us a bit about especially the environmental effect assessment? And in order not to face challenges during those processes, what would be your recommendations to project generators? And sometimes we face projects that can never ever be successful, that can never be implemented. We understand it right away, but the applications are made, sometimes. So I'm really willing, I'm really eager to hear your ideas on these matters. Thank you. Let me start by thanking uh, for your kind invitation. I salute you all on behalf of myself and my institution. So when it comes to chat, the environmental effect assessment, we have two departments, and the busiest, the most crowded, the most energetic department is us, actually. We have no sense of work hours. And by the way, right before the panel, we had a small meeting to talk, to decide on what we would talk. So we have full energy when it comes to energy projects and assessing them. The thing is, the environmental effect assessment is the very first step of the process, because that's the step, that's the stage where we check and conclude whether the project is feasible. So it's not just a procedure, not just another thing to be done with. And here's what we were discussing: 20 turbine project, dates are set, and the TA is like 9 turbines have to be, relocated. So then what are you going to do? There will be some downtime. You have to decide on the locations, and there was supposed to be a public offering too, but you have to delay it as well. And there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things involved here, and sometimes, you cannot control everything, and that's the point. And yes, a properly designed project is key, because sometimes, you make progress so much that it gets really heartbreaking for you to, go back to step one. It's like, yeah, buttoning your shirt. Yeah, a mistake along the way sometimes costs you to, go back to day one. So accelerating the assessment process is, yes, that would be great, but we are always in coordination. If a project involves or is going to take place in a forest land, then we make sure that all related parties have a chance to get together and discuss. When we receive a project, first we communicate it with the public, then we set a commission, try to figure out which parties or communities might be affected. We have meetings, then we set up a format, and after the format, preparing an environmental effect assessment. We check whether locations are correct, turbines are correct. So yeah, there are so many things to do. And let me emphasize this detail. I mean, even selecting the right location is crucial here. Environment Law Article 10 says that before a positive environmental impact assessment, a positive outcome, you cannot license, you cannot offer a permit, and you cannot start the project. But then the Article 6 Clause 3 says that, okay, you cannot start, but you can start the permit process. I mean, yes, it's going to take time, so you can start, it says. I mean, if even if your assessment hasn't been, concluded positively. So if we can, then we should.
Bizim şöyle bir talebimiz olmuştur zaman zaman. Yani İZEP sürecinin ya da nihai karara etkilemeyecek bir değerlendirme
But
sonucu
then,
herhangi bir proje.
if, I mean, that environmental impact assessment is going to be concluded positively, then okay, start the permit process, monitoring, reporting, whatever is required. If there's not going to be a negative impact on the environmental impact assessment, then okay, go for it. I think you understand me, because I mean, a lot of the responsibilities are, at stake here.
Yatırım bir baskısı. Yani siz
I mean,
yatırımcıya ne
and
kadar
the aim here is to start the investment immediately. I mean, we are a commission, so whenever people face problems, they come visit us. And yeah, I get it, they are right. It's about effort, it's about time, it's about money. Yes, it's very valuable, and we don't want to let their single day get wasted. We don't want them to lose time. But as long as there's clear communication, and as long as the details are shaped properly, then yeah, we would be more than willing to accelerate the process. The super permit thing, for example, we started to work on it. We have our assessments,
çalışmalar zaten devam ediyor. Daha hazırlık başladı. Atılımcılık da
and
beraber.
it's again an ongoing thing. So yeah, we'll do a lot more in the future. We
Talimatıyla daha hızlı nasıl olabiliriz?
we wondered how we could accelerate things.
Değişiklik yapsak her yatırıma
We wanted to identify some positive outcome bringing changes, and
bayağı gelişecekmiş. Yani çok uzatmayayım sorulardan sonra.
yeah, I mean, I think it's going to get better. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Details, right? They get really important, because at the end of the day, you cannot start your construction before the pre-license. I mean, it requires a lot of analysis, assessments. Even if you start your construction, you can only start drilling, and yeah. As long as everything is shaped properly, then you can swiftly see the end of that assessment project. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar. There's always a communication going on, but I think maybe a structure like a coordination center could help this process too. And I guess there is a study going on a ministerial level to ease and improve what we are discussing here. And with new YACA possibilities, I think positive changes will be introduced in the future. But I still want to ask you, what do you expect? Can we directly contact the ministry when we face issues and challenges? Yeah. Investors could always, contact ministries to let us know about their expectations and demands and everything. And just like our institutions, I mean, the doors of the ministry is always open. That's our responsibility. And when it comes to YAKA projects, yes, we are always in contact. I mean, not in, like, I'm not talking about daily conversations, like real time. Whenever they need, they can contact us. Any problems with any process, yeah, we were always being notified. And both our ministry and the general directorate include YECA and all sorts of projects, and we set a department to follow it so that they could follow investments and so that they could create dialogue, start communication. And by the way, this permit time focus is actually a result of those series of communications. They told us about the challenges, and it's like a reflection, actually, surely. And we discussed it with associations, industry representatives, and all related bodies. And with all the feedback that we received, actually, we improved this situation. Yeah, like I said, we established a department to follow those investments. And in terms of projects, well, I mean, with each passing day, I think we're gonna need something new, and in the future, there's going to be an incredible capacity and installation allocation, and because the potential is huge, and resource diversity and project installation methods or investment diversification is something that we need, and we need new structures for that. And yeah, our efforts continue. We are here to talk about wind today, but solar requires similar things, but their dynamics are different, challenges are different. So let's wrap it up as such. Ministry has been following all the developments, and they will continue in the future. And when it comes to coordination, I think we will hear improvements in the future. Yeah, thank you. Okay, then, Mr. Pasha, we visit you when we need environmental impact assessment, when we need an assessment on the use of forest land, and for property use. I mean, we know how it is. There are some monitoring phases, and we always communicate the same thing. Start working soon so that it won't take long. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and before environmental impact assessment, there's this observation phase, and we accept it too. Like, if there's going to be an application in 2024, then start your observations in 2023, and that's valid for us. Okay. And actually, if we're talking about a mature, experienced investors, they know how things go and they know what to do. But what about staging this process after the first license? If we were to start this process with you, this prerequisite thing, doesn't that differentiate it all? And natural preservation, state hydraulic works, etc. We contact all public institutions, and it's all about having the license to produce when it's time to break the ground. The observations, the ecosystem assessment reports. What about setting out a timeline? And what about starting all processes at the same time? And do some of the things, simultaneously. I'm looking for a shortcut here, yeah. For migration routes, we have some narrow valleys, or we have some support areas. And like I said before, we benefit from technology so that we can have most up-to-date information. Just like highway map of Turkey, we want to come up with maps, showing us migration routes or, those sort of things. And when we have them in place, then everything can, get easier. And for side roads, there were some commitments and it might be approved, but those narrow valleys and bottleneck areas, I mean, sometimes there's no way out, or sometimes it's not possible to have a side road because if you approve an appropriate thing, then it will become an example for future demands and future expectations. So that is why it is crucial to make decisions with most up-to-date information and data. It'll only make us work more efficiently, and we are aware of this challenge. That's why we started to work on it, and then we said, okay, maybe at least together with those environmental impact assessments, we can do a lot more. And we wanted to prepare a great foundation first so that we could offer the highest quality of service possible. But once fundamentals are taken care of, then we can move forward. But that commitment phase is in a way related with what they wanted to invest in. If they picked a location that is in that migration route or close to a preservation area, then I mean, it might take very long, and sometimes a very long run time of 3 months, 6 months might be required. But then, is it feasible? So yeah, we're trying to come up with a framework. I hope it'll take less time so that everything will continue very positively, so that we can implement even better projects. Yeah, we are ready to support because we have an incredible inventory. And let me share with you a piece of statistics. We're talking about more than 4,000 turbines, and we want to double it. Okay, but how? There are a lot of turbines, and their capacity increases. So, but then uh, when capacity increases, their distance increases too. I mean, turbines are getting larger, but because distances are getting longer, we minimize the effect on the impact on the environment. So very soon we'll start living with more than 4,000 turbines.
Uygulanan sistemin veya finansörlerin sizden istemiş oldukları kriterlerin birebir yani.
So we have to see and make the assessments, as you previously mentioned. We have to preserve the nature. While preserving the nature, we have the yield maximum to this energy. With any mistake can cost us our nature and can damage nature. We have to prevent it. Of course, coordination is important. Our Ministry of Energy is really playing a crucial role in terms of the adjustments in the regulations, as I mentioned, about these areas of these wild animals, protection and preservation of these wild animals, flora and fauna. It is our responsibility. It's not just regarding the energy sector, it's always also very much internationally related, and we are representing our country. It's not just about the energy. As we mentioned, the Çeşme province conflict. It is a reputation. It is bad for our country's reputation. It caused a great damage to our country. For the last 2 days, I have been listening in Germany. We know that Germany has a great level of risk, but geographically speaking, Spain, Italy has these models, has this model works. I believe it will be paving the path for these best practices. Maybe we can adopt those methodologies that they're using. Maybe we can integrate it into our formats. So the formats and requests, these ODRs, EDRs, clearly indicated. This is all clear. This is all clear when we prepare these reports and impacts. I believe we can face these conflicts and we can resolve these conflicts clearly with these MOC criteria regarding this area. The investors, when investors take a look at this area, of course, they can understand, but these regulation parts and norms are a little bit in Latin. It's hard to understand. It is hard to understand. You say the roots, immigration, fall immigration, spring immigration. So, yes, so it is always the lengthening the process, these periods to 6 to 8 months. We can see that it is up to 8 months. We can prepare it. I believe that we are lacking some parts. Maybe it is up to 16 months. It is the main lines. There are some bottlenecks. There are some areas. We are doing our parts and we will do what it takes for the upcoming periods. You can see the methods. All the data is public. We know, we see what are the forbidden areas, what are the forbidden areas for the nature protection, preservation. We have to pay careful. We have to pay attention. Maybe it is really complicated to allocate resources. Maybe to foresee the problems that we may face in the future, it is really worth taking a look at these areas. We are in the evaluation phase and we will be evaluating. By the end of the days, there are some licenses that we granted. There is an important information that you shared, Mr. Ahmet. We will get these permissions. There are some additional permissions, such as drilling permission. You have to make this assessment in the field, and these projects are developing on a fast pace. There are some assessments are made in the Turkey that we are using, but regarding the financement. Yes, with the financement, you have to do this on-site assessment. With the pre-permissions, you will have a work plan, you will have drilling plans, so you will be able to facilitate the work in the field. We chatted about this. We have these turbine points. You can change the areas, the project areas within the area. Turbines can be lacking depending the powers. Ideally speaking, in an ideal world, of course, you have to finalize it. Finalizing it this way will be ease the way for the masters. Um, this sometimes requires some additional measures. For example, you request a measure. As I consulted to the head, we granted 10 permissions. May it be assessment or may it be the residency permits, registry permits for 10 plants. If I permit 10 turbines, if I do not for the 10 other, it is not just. It's not fair. We have to, if there is a revision in the assessment reports in the projects we always face, it's going to happen. If it is not 10, if it is only 5, if it is 100,000 meter square, I have to decrease it to 70,000 meters square. When we are granting the area, and in order to complete the project correctly, it is a different type of project. It's a different type of area. In Muğla, Çanakkale, Balıkesir, within every 10 meter, 12 meter, you see, it is really important. In the implementation part, you can see it will be also correct for us. If we have 10 turbines, we can continue. Just like in the mining industry, it is all depending the mining permission. Then when the time comes, we can always give it to the commission. First of all, you have to investigate correctly regarding these property permissions. First of all, you have to scan it carefully. You can see the planning. You can see plans on our website. You can see the website. You can consult on our website. There are some important companies who are realizing it. We always come from this. We also come from these little provinces. When the companies come from these small provinces, our doors are always open. What's your restrictions? If they ask, we always respond. We always respond. We, of course, invite them to tea, lunch, everything. We always help them. If there is a difficulty regarding the fire danger, for example, we are here to protection of the forestry. Uh, our fighters have fallen martyrs to this fight in protection of our forests. It is important for us. The rules are clear. Investors are really playing an important role. So it has to be predictable. If it's consulted, maybe we can. Yunuki, I don't want these regulations. First of all, what we need is these exemption reports. These exemption reports and these public improvements in the public planning. Maybe you request a permission for the road, they say. Of course, this is the regulation of the Ministry of Environment. The plans has been damaged and they ended up in court, and there is a change in the regulations. We consulted the regulations. That's a very critical topic. It's really curious how you resolve this. Let me clear it. Of course, the investors always face this. Ministry of Environment has this regulation and protection. Fires, fire, forest fires are always impacted, but we shouldn't say that it shouldn't be damaged. Our turbines has been damaged during the fires in Çeşme, in fire in Alia, petrochemistry factories have been damaged. But what we need to understand is that if it is a forest area, you have to leave a road for 10 meters. You request is 10 meters. The minimum you have to seed these 10 meters of path, and you have to there is also specification that's called for 5 meters. Let me declare, If the forester request, no, we do not request. Maybe it is regarding that fire, but it is the same in the Black Sea region. It has the same regulations for the regulation makers. It is better to ask this. Maybe in the reassessment of this regulation, you can consult. Maybe we can make assessments. We can make the assessments. We can opinionate about this. But it's a natural disaster. We have to regulate accordingly. You have mentioned these environmental impact assessment reports. In terms of planning, residential planning, we cannot touch on this part, but investors, we consult for the forestry permission, for the planning permission. These institutions are always, it's a tedious project. Ministry of the Ministry of Environment is always saying that it is the first to consult to. If it is the first area, how can you pave the path that so that it can be used in other areas? It will be impacting the areas. We will be seeing it clearly. It is really important. There is this invisible line. We will be discussing this. We will be sharing this data. Ministry of Environment also makes some adjustments and updates. They will be sharing. The most complicated part is these reports, the environmental impact assessment reports. If there is a clear declaration, the report is cleared, I won't be requesting another report. The field, if there is a protected area in the field, I won't be requesting any other opinion. The investors are evaluating on a project base. Sometimes they obtain licenses if they coordinates and the area is clearly defined and determined. We always request for this detailed information. It is defined. I think it's really important that we have to define these lines and limits. It is the responsibility of the environmental impact assessment report, so I take it as a reference. I believe we can accept this as a reference. So I think we made it in the same. We comply with these mining assessment reports. So we will be making the necessary updates. We will be updating the laws of the codes of the Ministry of Energy in line with these regulations. It's not easy to make some adjustments, amendments to the laws regarding the forestry because it can be interpreted in a different way. You cannot really satisfy no one. So, in order to expedite this process, well, it will not be a problem for us. We will be acting in line with the Ministry of Environment. If we have time, we will be holding a Q&A session. Let me address the first question. When will this happen? When will this happen? That's the first question. What is the estimated calendar? Majority of this this work is planned, I'll say, in a short time. In a very short time, we will be presenting it to our National Assembly, and the Grand National Assembly will make the ultimate decision. Maybe it will be in a conclusion. Maybe we have to defend it in a in a fair way in the assembly so that they can make the decisions so that we will pave the path for the investment campaigns. I hope they will be active in the beginning of this year. We have 10 minutes left. Maybe we can limit it to 7 minutes. I, I don't know if they have. I don't know if they have some questions. Mr. Erinç. Mr. Erinç, just a second. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank for your moderation. We have valuable panelists where there are a lot of questions, but we don't know where to begin. The first question is regarding the existing regulations. There is these pre-permissions projected with this super decree or law. So will there be a regulation? Will there be a retrospective effect to these regulations, to these permissions? Will there be an retrospective implementation? I don't know if you can, if I made myself clear. So those who has obtained these permissions, will there be also using these? So maybe they will go back to these. They will have to ask for this second permission. If they obtain pre-permission, will they be also utilizing these opportunities? If this is going to be a retrospective regulation or not is for the institutions to decide. Within the regulations, within the scope of regulations, we can implement it. The regulations is important. In the regulations, it is important. We can consult. We can consult our friends, but I think it is possible. I cannot say something definitive, but it will be positive. We will see. We will see. In the implementation, maybe we can put a temporary amendment. I believe we save time for everyone. Thank you so much. There is another question. Do you have a question or anyone else? Greetings. My question is I will be addressing to Mr. Tarık regarding TOs. We change areas and we have to reinitiate the environmental impact assessment process again. Is there a way to improve? Maybe if we implement an extra HKT the areas, and maybe can we improve? Yes, we can get in touch with these institutions in the capital city in Ankara, but in other provinces we cannot consult experts. Even if we consult, they have these clear indications, and in 2 meter squares is in the forest area, and they terminate our project. So what type of support can you give us? Thank you so much. A change of the area, a change of the field is not completely changing, but it is changing within the topic. Not within sliding, but changing within this areas. Within the license area, if it is a change, if it's an update within the area of license, the points of the turbine, if the coordinates match, if it is within these areas, if it is indicated as such in the participation meeting, it is not of no problem. It's not a challenge for us. But if it is a complete change, if there are some cases that we didn't touch, for example, as a citizen, it didn't exist. You do not know of. There isn't a meeting, the participation of public meeting, and there is a slide, there is a switch. It has to start with the participation of public. It is the spirit of the environmental assessment report.
lisans alanının içinde yapılan bir değişiklikse
If it's a
problemdir.
change
Problem veriyoruz.
within the area
Ama
of
anlaşılır alanına
license,
geldiğimiz
no
zamansa
problem.
ona çok yapacağımız bir şey yok.
If it's
Şöyle
a
bir şey yapıyoruz.
complete area, there is
Böyle bir
nothing that we
kullanılan
can
alternatif
do.
alan değerlendiriyoruz. Yani anlatırken
There is an
burası var,
alternative
burada da olabilir.
areas.
Alternatif alan
Maybe we can find
%20'ye kadar
alternative
alternatif alanda
areas.
çalışabilirsiniz.
You can find alternative areas.
Yani bu sormakta çok doğru. Acaba mesela biz aslında bir şansımız 10 türbin ama şunu
Maybe we had these 10 turbines. Maybe sometimes we can have alternatives. We will have some missing parts. How do we collocate 20 turbines within these assessment reports? Maybe we can place also alternatives. We do not assess as these 20 turbines. The project title is still a 10 turbine, but if you study from the beginning as an alternative to T1 to T2, if it's something we can predict, if we communicate it is to the Commission,
Devam ederiz.
we will continue.
Biz bunu hani velev ki devam etsek bile
Even if we continue, maybe after a decision of assessment, next day through court, we will see. This structure changes, but CHED is always assessment report is always a prerequisite. Of course, investors should also obtain this consult to the expert.
en başından beri dediğimiz gibi yani zorluk projelendirilmiş noktalarımız
You have to detect and determine the areas. You have to design correctly in the beginning, from the beginning. Regarding this process, if there is a regulation published, there is a legal margin of time that you can respond to. In the regulation, it's stated, but sometimes these consultations take time. Even if you say it is limited to 30 days, even if they grant additional time, sometimes it takes 4 to 5 months. Maybe if you cannot get in touch with these authorities in the province, maybe you can put some limitations to it. Can it be a measure, effective measure? Well, MAPEC has a similar project. We can implement it to the similar projects. We do not have this. Well, there are some institutions that we have to consult. You cannot put a limitation if it is positive or negative. It puts the investors in a critical position. It is a critical process. The majority of our institutions comply with the period of times and requisites. Maybe you can take the necessary precautions, but you can make it a general regulation. Even if they do not give institution, they use it for their benefit. They accept it as an affirmative reply. Representing Gempa Energy, thank you so much, Mr. Ebru. Has asked all the hard questions. I hope I will be making myself clear. It's a little bit weird question. It is something hypothetical to expedite this process. I have a suggestion with a question. Germany, as far as we know, in these AIA locations, studying with these locations, has a flexible understanding. these permissions, there are some permissions regarding the implementations. We have to make some studies. We have to make some deliberate, exact studies. Sometimes due to these technological changes, as indicated by Ms. Ebru, for example, when we studied, it was 150 meters of the radius of the blades. So with the new technology, we noticed that it will be more appropriate for the blades, for the field, when we want to implement a different size of blades. So that assessment and the permission will be in vain because we obtain these permissions within the size of the blades. Maybe can we develop such a different type of permission? It's just a suggestion, it's a hypothetical question. Within this forestry permissions, we obtain these permissions with the specifications of the radius of the blades. We are using this specific area. The rest of the area is belonging to the forestry. We do not cut down a tree. Uh, we cut down the trees in order to eliminate the risk of the fires, but we are trying to preserve the forestry. I know that all the investors are complying with these prerequisites, but the field that we are actively using with the specific permissions and the rest of them can be framed in a larger field with the forest permission, with the specific areas, use it specifically, but the rest is your permission area. Can it be the system? What's your take on this issue? So you mean that in the specifications, these pre-permission areas can be maybe defined in a larger scale? All we have to always consider the alternative technology usage or the developed technology usage that fits the field. There will be different turbine types. Some uses these blades of 160, others use 140. I haven't decided, but meanwhile, I have to start these procedures of permission. So I start with 140 and continue with 160. With these permissions, I have to start from scratch. I would like to request a solution to this change in the process. Uh, Previously, it was 4 coordinates.
Sonra tabii
Yeah, it wasn't like that before in the past. The pre-licenses would be obtained and then decisions, would be made. So it's like, give me the property permit first. And if I end up not using the land that I was allowed to in the first place, I mean, then I'll, return it to you. Can this be a thing? No, I mean, according to the turbine types that I can project, I mean, let me get my permit for up to 180, radius. Give me the permit. I'll start working on it, and we'll carry out the necessary payment. And I'll make sure that we abide by the law. And let me get my permit for a larger property maybe. And I'm not going to change the center, etc. But give me the permit, allowing me to use the widest radius possible. Then, if I'm gonna go for a smaller one, then it'll be just fine. Okay, yes, but if you want to get a larger area and if you drop to 140, for example, from 180, then what about the land? Now, yeah, you can change it. I'm not going to use that land, okay, but it is allocated to you and it's against the law. It's just against the law. You know, we have our reservations on this one. I mean,
Gereksiz yere imara konu edip bir de bu konuda hani
unnecessary unnecessary zoning can bring about its own challenges. Yeah, okay, but then
ne kadar gitse kesin yani sonuçta izinli alan olması
I
gerekiyor.
mean,
Sonuç olarak
the zone
yani
that you were permitted
aslında ilk
should be
aldığımız
used to its fullest. Is this what you were saying? Because, you know, everything takes time. You measure the turbines, you have your tests, everything. Yeah, that's why I said prepare your project, you know, meticulously. You see, we're talking about a lot of processes, a lot of revisions. When we permit a square meter, we are fully responsible of it. So allowing you the land that the more than you need. I mean, then what? It's not easy to cancel a permit once it's approved. So yeah, it's a long-term process, and yes, there are challenges. So we always work to mitigate risks and errors, but let's go through this permit process. But yeah, maybe we need a practical approach. Yeah, I asked you this question because I mean, sure, assess the entire land that we intend to use, but suppose suppose we end up using a smaller turbines, then I mean facilitate and ease the process. So that's yeah, because we go all the way to the beginning, and that's a challenge, and that takes too much time. Okay, noted down. Thank you. All right, there is another session, so
soru
let's end the
ya kısa bir
Q&A.
soru
Okay, all right. Only if it's a
Burada sahneden
Mr.
biraz
Minister.
çekiyorum.
Is it Hakan? Mr. Hakan?
Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Böyle bir katkılarından dolayı.
Thank you to Rev
Değerli,
for your contribution.
Ertan Enerji'nin CEO'suyum.
I am the CEO of Ertan Energy. I'm Hakan Ertan.
Bizim kendi projemizle ilgili bir konu bahsedeceğim. Kısa ama
I'm going to talk about our project. I'll keep it brief, but I think everyone can benefit from this story. In 27, we had an application in the 1st of November, and we were licensed to implement a project in Tracia. In Tracia region, the height had to be changed, and because of that, then we received a full rejection. Then we had to change location, and we tried and tried, and in the end, we lost quite some time, but we managed to realize the investment. But when it comes to the leasing of a forest land, there is this 10-year of exemption or this 80% leasing thing made us face a loss of 7 to 8 years. And during that leasing, last year, we were told that our 10-year time is completed. Now you are no longer exempted, and according to new regulations, you will be facing very high sums of leasing. We had an exemption of 85% for that 10 years time, and we were told, I mean, we thought that it had to be the 10 years starting with the project, in operation. We asked about it and figured out that 10 years after the approval of the license. So I just wanted to bring this to the agenda. I just wanted to ask you, what can we do on this? Another thing is that, I mean, leasings are very costly right now. They're very expensive. the leasing in the early days and leasing now hiked tremendously. And the leading energy investment companies and their CEOs had a meeting yesterday, and they brought the same thing to the agenda yesterday. System utilization costs has also risen, and now the forced land leasing cost has also increased. So I think investors are becoming like a victim here. I mean, solar plant licenses. I mean, we also have solar plant licenses. So what about refraining from forest land and, you know, contact private property
Peki ben cevap vereyim.
Evet, çünkü
Cevabınızı
neden
ilk
bu bahsettiğiniz konudaki
and
bilirkişiler toplantısı var.
expropriate it?
Herhangi bir sayın zaten
Yes, we
cevap
had a
verebilir.
meeting a couple of days ago
O sizin dediğiniz
with the
göre
ministry. We discussed the law 5346. We need clear definitions, and we actually shared our messages, and they said that they have taken our notes. And so I think it's in the agenda. I'm so sorry. I know what was going on. So
sağ olun. Çok İkincisi de tabii ki kira bedelleri
I mean,
iki
yes,
aydır
leasing
yükselmiyor.
costs
Bedel.
have
Bu
risen,
bedeller de kullanılıyor. İşte
but they are transferred to the treasury, and they are used for combating with fire or the preservation of environment, etc. So
bedel hesaplama şeyiyle bu şekilde bir uygulama
those were carried out after meticulous calculations, and we unfortunately are not responsible on determining prices, but the ministry can take it into consideration.
indirimle alakalı artık o dediğiniz gibi ilgili bakanlık onu değerlendirecek.
And yeah, related ministries will discuss those topics. Yeah, I'm so sorry. We're awfully behind the schedule. So thank you. Now it's time for the ceremony.
Ve verelim hemen. Ebru Hanım. Evet. Değerli katkıları için moderatörümüz Ebru Hanım'a çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ebru Arıcı'ya çok sağ olsunlar. Tarım ve Orman Bakanlığı Doğa Koruma ve Milli Parklar Genel Müdür Yardımcısı Sayın Paşa Enver Baysi'ye çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Sonra Dilan Hanım'ı size hemen vereceğiz. Tarım ve Orman Bakanlığı Orman Genel Müdürlüğü İzin İrtifak Daire Başkanı Sayın Ahmet Kükü. Peki. Bilmiyorum, kusura bakmayın. Evet, Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı YK Dairesi Başkanı Sayın Doktor Dilan Kavruğa da çok çok teşekkürler efendim. Sayın Ahmet Köle centilmenlik yapmıştı, eksik olmasınlar efendim, çok sağ olun. Tarım ve Orman Bakanlığı Orman Genel Müdürlüğü İzin İrtifak Daire Başkanım Sayın Ahmet Köle'ye çok çok teşekkürler değerli. Sizleri bu tarafa alabilir miyiz Dilan Hanım, arka planda fotoğraf çekilirken teşekkür ederiz. Ve Çevre çok teşekkürler. Çevre Şehircilik ve İklim Değişikliği Bakanlığı ÇED Daire Başkanı Sayın Tarık Durmuş'a da çok teşekkür ediyoruz efendim. Sonrasında şöyle bir bu bölümün konuşmacıları ve hep beraber bu oturumun değerli konuşmacıları, katılımcılarıyla bir fotoğraf çekip